Well, welcome to a Good Friday walk and talk. And I want to use this just to reflect a bit on an older hymn. And the hymn is called Beneath the Cross of Jesus. It's actually one of my favourite hymns, and it's one of my favourites from those that traditionally would have been sung on Good Friday. I don't want to be too critical of things today, but sometimes we can end up missing Good Friday and missing the hymns and songs that focus on the cross, and then actually we end up singing them on Easter Sunday. Well, I really think Easter Sunday should be just that sense of glorious joy in the resurrection of Jesus. But I want to focus in on this hymn. The hymn pictures the cross as this protection, something that offers shade, shadow, the image of the burning noonday sun sort of beating down in a dry, dusty desert land, and wanderers, exiles in that wilderness, in that desert, needing somewhere to get some shelter from the scorch of the sun, and finding it there beneath the cross in its shade. I guess the sun representing the reality of justice, of God's judgment, even of God's wrath on sinners. That the cross becomes the place where we find shelter. And I wanted to home in on some lyrics in the second verse. The hymn writer says, "Beneath the cross of Jesus, two wonders I confess, the wonder of his glorious love and my unworthiness." The reason I love Easter, the reason I love Good Friday, is because here we see in all its fullness, in all its glory, God's grace, God's love. Grace is about us receiving something that we don't deserve, that we are not worthy of. And that is possible because Jesus, God in Jesus, comes and takes our place. That Jesus receives what we do deserve, what we are worthy of, and what he does not deserve, what he is not worthy of. And the thing that Jesus is receiving is death. Not just death as a natural death, but death as punishment. So Isaiah 53, it talks about Jesus being wounded and pierced for our transgressions, that Jesus is described as crushed for our iniquity, and that it is the Lord's will to crush him. Strong, striking, shocking words. And it's shocking not just because we struggle to cope with that concept as modern humans, but it is shocking because this is something that Jesus doesn't deserve. Both because he is the good and perfect God, and I think it is important to start with that as the Son, God the Son, he is worthy of praise and honour. The greatest commandment is that we should love God, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength. And it is reasonable for God to ask that of us, to command that of us. And therefore, for God the Son, for Jesus to command that, to demand that of us, to demand that we love him because he is good and glorious, worthy of love, worthy of being the object of our desire, worthy of it, and because he showers out his love on us. But Jesus also does not deserve death because he is the obedient Son, and that is seen in the incarnation, in him coming to earth, giving up the glory of heaven to live amongst us. But it is also seen in his human nature as he is tempted in every way but without sin, as he lives a perfect life, not just saying no to wrong things, but doing what is right, loving not just his neighbour, but loving his enemy, not just refraining from doing harm, but doing good, healing on the Sabbath day, feeding the hungry, casting out demons, coming to break Satan's power. And ultimately we see Jesus' obedience at the cross itself, because he's obedient to death. In the Garden of Gethsemane, we see him wrestling, and he is saying to the Father, I wish that I did not have to go through this. Let this cup be taken away from me, the cup of suffering, the cup of judgment. But yet not my will, but yours. So Jesus obeys the will of the Father and goes to the cross and is crucified, is beaten, is pierced, experiences the crushing weight of human judgment. And that alienation that is expressed in the words, my God, why have you forsaken me? It's important to understand that and to see that and not to run away from it. Again, something that people don't want to hear. But remember that death in the Bible is not just about a physical end to life, but it is about exile and alienation. Alienation from the place of God's presence and blessing, alienation, exile from God himself. And that cry of dereliction is about that. Jesus on the cross took the penalty, bore the shame, bore the wrath, bore the guilt that was on us, so that it was lifted from us. We were worthy of judgment and death, but we did not receive that. Jesus was worthy of glory and love, but instead of receiving that, he received judgment, the thing that we did not deserve. And what do we receive in return? It is not simply that Jesus takes the penalty for our sin. He gives us something else, something that we do not deserve. He gives us forgiveness. He gives us new life, life instead of death. He gives us healing in its fullest sense. With his stripes we are healed. Not a sort of a narrow reference to guaranteed physical healing in this life now, but that sense of being made whole in him. And the New Testament talks about us being justified. That Paul in Romans 4 says that we are justified by faith. And what that means is that God is righteous, that Jesus is righteous, literally right with. The righteousness is simply about being right in the right with God. And Romans 4 says that his righteousness is given to us so that we have peace with God. Romans 5, that's when we are reconciled to God, we're made right with God. Something given to us, the image there of two ledgers, two bank accounts, and the one is in debt, but what is in the other account that's in surplus is passed across, transferred, credited to the account. Martin Luther, and I think he was even borrowing this illustration from the past. Martin Luther gave the illustration of a story of the prince and the pauper, the beggar. He says, imagine that there's this prince and he is the heir of everything. He has unspeakable riches and power and status. And he meets this beggar girl. She's clothed in rags. She has nothing. But despite all of that, he loves her. And he marries her, and he gets her beautiful new clothes to wear. And she becomes his bride, she becomes his princess. She becomes the co-heir with him to the kingdom, so that she is queen to his king. All of it undeserved. But what it means is that he takes on himself her shame, her poverty, her debt, perhaps debt of billions of pounds that she can't pay off. And he doesn't just pay off the debt, he doesn't just take the penalty, but because she is united with him, everything that is his is hers, and everything that is hers is his. So her debt is his untold riches become hers. And that's a beautiful image of what happens with us because of the cross, because of Calvary. We receive his righteousness, his obedience is imputed or credited to us, just as our disobedience has been credited to him. So we are declared right with God, we are reconciled to God, we have peace with God, and we become co-heirs with Christ to the riches of heaven. That's incredible good news, isn't it? And that was achieved on Good Friday. As we saw the perfecting of his love, and confirmed by Jesus' resurrection on Easter Sunday. Living, he loved me. Dying, he saved me. Buried, he carried my sin far away. Rising, he justified freely forever. One day he's coming. Oh, glorious.